Penance runners get a bad reputation because if you don't know how they think, it might look like they're just messing with you and they ignore the perfectly good food that's right in front of them and yeet off down the middle of the map. But penance runners actually operate in a very structured way, and it is possible to understand what they're doing and manipulate it. This is how the defender role has become so complex and skilled over time. In this video, I'm not going to try to explain how to do anything fancy. There are way better people you can learn specific defender strategies from. The purpose of this video is to explain some of the basic mechanics of penance runners in a pretty simple way without getting into too much detail. Essentially, I'm trying to explain how penance runners think. Understanding how penance runners work might help you to understand the purpose of certain defender strats, like bumping runners, and it will definitely help you figure out what is going wrong when your runners aren't doing what you want. If you're brand new to the defender role, this isn't the best place to start, and if you're the kind of person that wants to know all the specifics and jump straight to the most efficient strats, this probably isn't the video for you either. You might want to check out the links in the description instead. Okay, so let's get into it. First, I'm going to quickly talk through some mechanics, then I'll put them in context and explain what's probably happening when your runners are acting weird. Penance runners operate on a 10-tick cycle that repeats over and over again and determines what action they take. I won't explain the whole cycle. For now, you just need to know that it exists, and what penance runners do at any point in time relates to where they are in that 10-tick cycle. Essentially, the actions they can take are target a food and move towards it to eat it, pause and wait until it's time to move or target again, or move randomly. For a runner to target a food, there needs to be food within 5 tiles of it that it can see. As long as there's that food within 5 tiles, it can actually target any food that it can see within an adjacent chunk, which is a distance of up to 15 tiles. It picks which food to target based on a priority order, which is determined by where the food is and how recently it was dropped. Basically, the map is split into 8 by 8 chunks of tiles, shown here. Without getting into all the detail, the rule is that of all the food the runner can see, it will pick the most recently dropped food in the highest priority chunk. In general, runners will prioritize food in more northern and eastern chunks. So that's targeting. The second thing a runner can do, pausing and waiting, needs no explanation. The third action they can take is move randomly. This can happen because a runner can't see any food when there's no food within 5 tiles, or at certain times in the 10-tick cycle when the runner is unable to target food. When a runner moves, if it isn't targeting, it will move 5 tiles in a randomly determined direction, either south, east, or west. The only time a runner will go north is if it's targeting a food or if it's eaten a bad food. So, knowing these things about runners, we have some tools to be able to manipulate them. We can use food placement and timing of when food is dropped to manipulate which food a runner targets and therefore where it goes. And we can interrupt what a runner is doing to manipulate what it does next based on where it is in its 10-tick cycle. For example, you can block or bump a runner by standing in its path, you can stand on the food a runner is targeting to stop it eating, and time when you let it eat it, or you can pick up the food a runner is targeting or let another runner eat that food. These are the building blocks of most defender strategies, but there are also ways that you can mess up and cause chaos. If you place a food in the wrong spot, a runner might not see it. If you let a runner eat the food another runner was targeting, it might freak out. If you place a food late, the runner might not see it at the right time to target it. So let's look at some of the common reasons your runners are being dickheads and why it might happen. I'm going to go over 4 reasons runners might seem to be acting strangely. First, there's no food they can target. Second, your food was not placed fast enough, so the runner targeted a different food. Third, the runner targeted a higher priority food. Or fourth, the food it was targeting disappeared before it could eat it. In the first situation, where there's no food the runner can target, the runner will move randomly. So as I explained before, there must be a food within 5 tiles of the runner in its line of sight. If a runner goes to target a food but can't see any, it moves 5 tiles in a random direction, south, east, or west. Then it will stop and attempt to retarget. If it still can't see any food, it'll keep moving randomly. The second situation is your food not being placed fast enough. This usually happens when you're laying food down at the start of a wave. If you're too slow to place down your food at the trap, trail, and main stack, it won't be there when the runner first tries to target a food. This can cause it to either move randomly, because it can't see any food, or target a different food than you wanted. The third situation is the runner targeting a higher priority food. This means that when the runner goes to target, the food you're intending it to eat was not the most recently dropped food in the highest priority chunk that the runner can see. This might happen if you've accidentally dropped a food somewhere, or if you placed your food in the wrong spot. It's also often a cause of chaos when you're trying to recover a runner that's gone off track. In this clip, you can see the runners going for the most recently dropped food in the most northeastern chunk. They ignore the nearby food, which is in lower priority chunks. The last situation is the food disappearing before the runner could eat it. This is the most complex to understand and a very likely reason for all sorts of runner shenanigans. By disappearing, I'm referring to the food being picked up, despawning, or another runner eating it. There are 3 different ways a runner might respond when the food it was targeting disappears. What it does depends on at which point in its 10-tick cycle this happened. If the food disappeared on the multi-kill tick, the same tick that most runners target food, the runner will instantly retarget another food if it can, and will eat that instead. This is how a multi-kill works. If the food disappeared on a soft crash tick, the runner will stop its movement, and then, after a moment, it'll retarget another food. Hopefully that food is at the trap, and it will just carry on its merry way to eat that food and die. This is known as a soft crash. If the food disappeared on a hard crash tick, the runner will not be able to retarget at all. It will instead stop, do a random movement, and then retarget. This is a hard crash. The random movement might put it in a spot where it doesn't see the trap food anymore, so it might go eat somewhere else instead, making it take a lot longer to get to the trap and die. Or worse, the hard crash and resulting random movement could put the runner in a spot where it can't see any food at all anymore, and it may keep doing random movements. So you really want to avoid hard crashes if possible. You can do this by timing when you let runners eat, so that it happens on the multi-kill tick or a soft crash tick. So that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. To recap, runners operate on a 10-tick cycle. They can do 3 things: target food, pause and wait, or move randomly. Runners can target food in an adjacent chunk within up to 15 tiles of them, but only if there's food within 5 tiles in their line of sight. Runners target the most recently dropped food they can see within the highest priority chunk. And 4 common reasons things go wrong are: there's no food the runner can target, the runner targeted a different food because yours wasn't placed fast enough, the runner targeted a higher priority food, or the food the runner was targeting disappeared before it could eat it. If you're keen to learn more about runner mechanics, check out the links in the description. The most important thing to remember is that killing runners is a science, not an art. Runners have rules. If a runner isn't doing what you want, it's not the runner's fault, it's yours.